for the future. 10 parking spaces, including 2 disabled bays within the western courtyard. There'll also be a community garden as part of the proposal. And then in addition to that, there are 85 new homes. 40% of those will be affordable homes with a shared sort of podium or raised garden with roof terraces. There'll also be minimal parking for the homes, 4 parking spaces. And with that, there are also a different type of residential accommodation, which is called co-living. That is, so there'll be 140 co-living rooms. And just to explain briefly what that is a type of residential accommodation where people who prefer to share in a similar way to student housing. So they share facilities, but have your own room with a small sort of kitchenette, but actually have sort of shared dining and living spaces. There'll be landscape roof terraces with that, 4 parking spaces, and obviously cycle parking for the whole development because for sustainability reasons. And there's also co-working space being provided, so 1,500 square meters of flexible workspace, including a gym and a cafe. And then together with all that, there'll be sort of landscaping improvements and highways improvements the whole way around the site. So the actual site itself is made up of 3 ownerships. There's the factory site at the north end, the Jessica Buttons factory. In the centre, the day centre, which is the Clarendon Recovery College. And then, of course, the West Indian Cultural Centre to the south. So those 3 sites are coming together as one holistic site for redevelopment. And the next slide shows, is a model of the proposed building, showing the proposed building heights. And I'll just explain, to the right here is the Clarendon Gasworks development, which is currently under construction. The buildings here in yellow are a sort of hypothetical potential future redevelopment of the adjacent sites. This is just something that we do as part of the planning proposal to ensure that future development is considered as well, whether that comes forward in the near future or the distant future. So the proposal is shown in blue, and I'll just show you the proposed building heights. We've got 14-storey building at the southern end of the site. That's on the corner with Turnpike Lane. That building steps down to 12 stories. And then at the northern end, there is a building of 10, 8 and 6 stories. And those 2 buildings are linked together with a 2-storey base. And that base has sort of non-residential uses, which I will explain in a second. So I won't go into detail about the floor plans at this stage, but I'll just explain that there is a basement proposed, and that basement will serve the residential aspects of the scheme. So the parking for the co-living and for the residential apartments is in the basement, and that's accessed by a lift. And there'll be also sort of plant room and services and so on in terms of energy strategy and cycle storage as well in the basement. And then at the ground floor, the area in orange represents the African Caribbean Cultural Centre. So the new centre, and I'll show you a more detailed plan in a second of the layout for the cultural centre. At the southern end is entrance to the office space, which goes up to 1st floor, and there's also an entrance to a fitness studio, a gym. I'll just also mention that the vehicular access will remain as in the existing situation, so off Clarendon Road and into the rear here. And I'll talk about more on that in a second. And I'll just briefly show you typical floor plans as well. So this one is a 1st floor plan here on the left, showing the co-working office space with a cafe in the middle, extending over the 1st floor. And then if I just move to the right-hand side, I can just show you sort of the typical arrangement here. So at the south end, These are the residential apartments, so 1, 2 and 3 bedroom apartments. And at the northern end here is the co-living building. So that has individual rooms with shared facilities. And then obviously the existing building, which I'm sure you all are familiar with, the West Indian Cultural Centre. It's been pointed out to us that the original building was conceived here, this sort of curved part of the building was conceived to symbolise the hull of a ship and make a reference with the Empire Windrush. And obviously the existing building is in need of repair and bringing up to date to enable the centre to do its work better and looking towards the future. So the African Caribbean Cultural Centre of the Future. The proposals have been developed with members who represent the Cultural Centre, and the brief for this valuable community resource aims to support and strengthen the local and the wider community. And the key objectives are that for a state-of-the-art building that's future-proof and with flexible uses. It's foremost an inclusive cultural centre, and it's a facility that celebrates cultural identity and connects Black history with the community. And education is very much at the heart of the centre's work. So equipping the younger generation to be prepared for the future, as well as preserving the legacy of the older generation and telling that the story. I'll just show you very briefly, these are the existing floor plans that we've obviously taken a note of the existing facilities, and we have arrived at the proposal by looking at these spaces and re-providing the existing facilities with some additional facilities as well. So just looking at the whole site layout before I zoom into the actual layout of the centre. The entrance to the cultural centre is here, right in the centre of the development. That's opposite Hornsey Park Community Garden, just to locate that. It's further south, there are a number of other entrances that serve the other uses. So I'll just explain that the blue arrows here are residential entrances to the apartments above. This blue arrow here is an entrance to the co-living building off the end of the south end of Clarendon Road. And then there are two more entrances here at the southern end, one for the gym, and the other is the entrance to the workspace. There will be a pedestrian route through here, so there'll be access as the existing building has, in terms of people being able to access Clarendon Road from Turnpike Lane. And vehicular access will be, as I mentioned, from Clarendon Road here. And the blue hatched area here contains the 10 car parking spaces for exclusive use of the cultural centre. 2 of those are disabled. And here is the lift that goes down to the basement, which isn't attached to the cultural centre, but that'll serve the residential uses. Okay, and I'll also should just mention as well, there are a couple of other entrances, a secondary entrance here to the cultural centre, and also a rear sort of drop-off area, a drop-off entrance here at the back as well. So looking in more detail at the cultural centre plan, we come into the main entrance here into a really tall double height space here. This is the reception area with a reception desk and some seating. There's then a lounge bar area to the other side here, fronting onto this courtyard at the back. This is actually a covered area which can be used for spill out space as well. So if events are going on in here, this area can be used, it's got access onto here. So there's sort of spill out space towards the back as well. To the left of the entrance is the new library, the digital library, where all the books will be preserved, but it'll be brought up to date with sort of computers and technology, and it will also be a flexible teaching space, so that will be used in whichever way the community would like to use it. And then looking at, just to point out number 4 here, there are some toilets at the south end, and there are additional toilets at the north end here as well. And the main hall here, this is the most important bit, is right in the centre of the centre, and it's basically has a stage at the north end. It's got changing facilities as the existing centre has. It's got storage as well, so that the space here in the centre can be used flexibly. So tables and chairs can be stored away and so on, and it can also potentially be subdivided into smaller areas if to allow flexibility. So the idea with this curved shape really was to make a subtle reference again to the Windrush, and just keep that connection and just keep that reminder of the story. And what we thought also in addition to that is to wrap an exhibition gallery as a sort of deck around this boat. So number 10 is an exhibition gallery which can be used to communicate and tell the story of the journey from Africa via the Caribbean to this country, or used for whatever uses the community wants to use it. But this is a good way of sort of communicating with the wider public as well, because we've got these sort of large glazed openings here. So this is a great place to communicate with the wider public. I should also mention there's a kitchen here off the main hall, which has got a sort of catering hatch as well for whatever events happen in there, for weddings and so on. So that'll be the catering, and some storage and plant rooms here off the kitchen. And then at the north end of the building, there's office space provided, an open plan office, and then also a smaller office for the coordinator, and 2 counselling rooms as well. And then there is a meeting room as well at this end of the building. And then I should also mention number 11 here, which is a really important part of the project. The intention is for this to become a new a community garden for the African Caribbean Centre, and the intention is for this to be a very high quality landscaped area. But what's really exciting is that there's opportunity as well, potentially for a public art competition. So there could be some artwork here that's commissioned and put in place, and something that really strongly reflects and is associated with the cultural centre. So I'll just show you some sketches, some indicative sketches. This is a view looking from the east and approaching the centre. So this is from the avenue, and here's the double height entrance, very sort of prominent grand entrance to the cultural centre, which is here. And then this area in front becomes public realm and landscape gardens. Oh, sorry, I've gone past it. This is a closer view looking towards the entrance and the community garden here. And we've made a suggestion of a possible sculpture, but this could be anything, whatever the community wants to see here, that will that could represent the cultural centre. So that should be a really exciting space. And there's also opportunity to grow maybe some plant species. There are some species that will grow in this country that can be strongly connected with the Caribbean as well. So strong associations as well from before you even get inside the building. And then a couple of sketches of the interior. This is a view standing just in the reception and looking across. You get a view all the way through to the back and to the spill out space. So there's the area at the rear drop off as well, which is completely open. But in terms of sort of spatially organising this, you would actually come in past the reception desk and then through, and you can just see the main hall in the distance there. And then, oh sorry, keep moving on. This is a view looking at the main hall and looking at the exhibition gallery as well, which should be, you know, flexibly used and you know, adapted to what the needs of the community really, in terms of what could be happening in this space. And then I'll just summarise some of the landscape features as well, because there's a lot of green space proposed in this as well. So it should be a huge improvement on the existing site in terms of greening up the site and really improving the landscape. So number one is the community garden, which I've spoken about. I should also mention that the existing trees here are to be retained, and there's potentially a really exciting sort of, connected with the public art project, there could be a project to light the trees as well, and really sort of highlight this, highlight the centre through lighting the trees. And there's kind of quite a strong symbolism of these really mature trees having roots in this part of Haringey. So some really interesting sort of public art possibilities there. Number two is what we're calling Turnpike Parade, which is a whole new sort of landscaped area to the south, a more sort of civic type space with some seating. And then number three, Clarendon Gate, because it's a kind of gateway through to Clarendon Road here. We've got some tree planting and a garden here with some sculptural play space to the south end of it. And as I mentioned, I think I've already mentioned this potential for this sort of spill out space to be used by the cultural centre as well. And then just jumping to number four, there's some new tree planting proposed as well as a sort of, as quite a striking feature, and making this really a sort of key entrance into Haringey Heartlands looking towards the future. So that's a strong connection there. And then there's a central garden here at the second floor, which serves the residential elements of the development. There's also landscape roof terraces as well. So there's a lot of greenery here, and there's also some solar panels as well, because the project will also be, you know, approaching zero carbon as much as possible. So there'll be a very sort of sustainable agenda for the build as well. And these are just very briefly some sort of longer distance views of the whole proposal from various standpoints. I won't go into detail about these, but these are just on the various approaches across Whiteman Road, across the junction, and then along Turnpike Lane, looking east and west, looking from the avenue as well, from the east, and looking down south from these two, from Clarendon Road and Hornsey Park Road. So yeah, just a summary of everything then. It's a new and vibrant development with the cultural centre at the heart of it. It's a state-of-the-art cultural centre that's equipped for the future and reinforces Haringey's cultural quarter. There's a strong connection there to the cultural quarter in the gasworks development. There are 85 new homes with 40% affordable housing, with landscaped gardens and roof terraces. The 140 co-living rooms with communal facilities and roof terraces, and co-working space with cafe and fitness studio, a new cultural centre community garden in the picture there, and then just landscaped public space with improvements to the road and tree planting as a new entrance into Haringey Heartlands. So that is the end of the presentation, and I'll hand over to Ransford Stewart.
Yes, thanks, Deborah, and thanks for introducing the proposals. State-of-the-art cultural centre is the objective. That's what we're all working towards. I think we're all familiar with the existing centre, which has served us all for the best part of 40 years, but is really now starting to show those signs of age, and has really outlived its usefulness and becomes actually a hindrance for the future rather than a help. This is the opportunity now for us to build back, build a bigger, better, state-of-the-art cultural centre that not only looks better, performs better, but also is something that is sustainable for the future. the old ways of doing things, of building and then hoping that somebody's going to fund it and support you financially through grants, etc. That's all gone now. This is now an opportunity for us to create something that is self-sustaining, supports itself financially and in all other ways, and becomes a real catalyst for development of our communities in the area. So that's about the centre itself. I just wanted to add, though, that this is just the start of a one event in a process of engagement with the communities to raise awareness of what the leadership is setting out to achieve, working with partners. There will be other events coming up soon over this coming weekend, and again over the next couple of weeks leading up to the submission of the planning application, which we expect is going to be in or around December time. With that planning application, there'll be another process that the council will be pursuing, where they're going to be encouraging people to give their views on the proposals. So what we're trying to do here is to give you forewarning and to give you the opportunity to see the proposals as they are currently and as they're being developed, to raise questions with us, and to learn a bit more about what it is that's being proposed, and so that you can then take part in the formal consultation processes from a more informed position. I would also hope that you'd lend your support to the proposals as they go through the planning processes, because, as said previously, this is our opportunity to create something that's bigger, better, and sustainable for the community for the future.
Thank you for that, Ransford. Stuart, there's been
Yes, sir.
a few questions that have come in from members of the public, from the community, in particular the African Caribbean community, and one of them has been access to the actual residential development itself, and what they want to understand, what might the policy be, given that the centre is an integral part of this new development.
Well, first and foremost, the objective is to create the best centre we can. Local authorities, which historically have been instrumental in building community centres, that's not the approach of the 21st century. So to enable this to happen, we've had to find a new model to fund this. And in this situation, fortuitously, we've been able to have the space to be able to generate enough residential units which will fund a facility which is befitting of our community. So the units are obviously available to anybody in the private sector who wish to acquire them, but essentially the sale of them is part of what's enabling the centre to be built.
Right, thanks for that. And there's another question here about whether there will be a temporary home where it might be during the construction phase.
We've committed to ensure that our community is not disrupted beyond what is necessary whilst the new site is being constructed. We haven't actually identified a new facility or a temporary facility as yet. However, we are obliged by way of contract to do so. So near this time, we'll be able to jointly identify what facilities are available and then jointly choose which might be best and most convenient for us. So that's something which is definitely on the agenda, but exactly where is unknown at this point in time.
Okay, thanks for that. And finally, it's how long is it going to take to build, given in 2022, that will be the 35th anniversary of the centre on this site, the new centre, existing centre?
Well, we anticipate a build time between, at best, 18 months, but realistically, it's going to be near to 24 months. As Deborah had articulated earlier on, this is going to be a fairly substantive development at its highest point, 14 stories. So that's going to take some time to do. However, I'm hoping that everyone would agree that it's going to be a facility and a development which is worth waiting for, and it will be seen as a beacon within our community. So we'll have to hold our breath for about between 18 months and 24 months.
Right, thanks for that. And thank you all. Thank you, Ransford, Deborah and Stuart, for that most enlightening presentation. And as Ransford did indicate, there will be many other opportunities for the community to have their say over the next few weeks. So thank you very much, everybody, and good night.
Thank you.